Back in July 2007, this is a tale of jealousy, manipulation, and a surprising twist that caught everyone off guard. Laura Wilkie, aged 35, was a journalist with a strong determination to uncover corruption. She ran a blog called Ocala After Dark, where she fearlessly investigated local crime stories and political figures. Laura was known for her sharp mind and contagious laughter, which drew people to her. In her free time, she enjoyed painting landscapes and exploring the city's hidden treasures. During the hot summer of July 2007, Ocala was bustling with activity due to the city's annual music festival, Ocala Jam Fest. Laura, always on the hunt for an interesting story, attended the festival to capture its vibrant atmosphere and interview bands, both new and established. Her blog post about the event gained attention from music fans and fellow journalists. But Laura's true passion was exposing the darker side of the city. She delved into the lives of local politicians, uncovering scandals and shining a light on their questionable actions. Her investigative pieces, such as revealing the mayor's secrets and exposing the dark side of Ocala's elite, became the talk of the town. The local newspaper, Ocala Gazette, even featured her work on the front page, praising her relentless pursuit of truth. However, Laura's determination came with risks. She received anonymous threats and warnings to stay away from certain individuals. But she remained undeterred, believing that the truth needed to be brought to light. Her latest investigation focused on a prominent car dealership owner, Jonathan Range Rover Reed, who was rumored to have ties to organized crime. Laura dug into his background, uncovering suspicious transactions and connections that led her into the dangerous underworld. Little did Laura know, her relentless pursuit of justice would have serious consequences on a sweltering July afternoon. As Laura continued her investigation into Jonathan Range Rover Reed and his alleged ties to organized crime, she became increasingly immersed in a web of deceit and danger. Despite the warnings and threats she received, Laura was furled by her unwavering commitment to uncovering the truth. She spent countless hours poring over documents, following leads, and conducting interviews, determined to expose any wrongdoing. Her relentless pursuit took her to the shadowy corners of Ocala, where she encountered individuals who would stop at nothing to protect their secrets. With each piece of evidence she uncovered, Laura's sense of urgency grew. She knew that her findings had the potential to shake the foundations of the city's power structures and bring about real change, but she also understood the risks involved. As the summer heat intensified, so did the tension surrounding Laura's investigation. Suspicion hung in the air, and Laura found herself constantly looking over her shoulder, unsure of who she could trust. Then, one fateful July afternoon, as the sun beat down mercilessly on the streets of Ocala, Laura made a shocking discovery that would change everything. But before she could act on it, tragedy struck, sending shockwaves through the community and leaving everyone wondering what had truly happened to Laura Wilkie. The events that unfolded that day would reveal the dark underbelly of Ocala's power dynamics and serve as a stark reminder of the dangers that lurk beneath the surface of even the most seemingly idyllic communities. And as the investigation into Laura's death began, it became clear that the truth was more elusive and more dangerous than anyone could have imagined. As news of Laura's tragic demise spread throughout Ocala, the community was plunged into a state of shock and disbelief. Friends, family, and followers of her work on Ocala After Dark were left reeling, struggling to come to terms with the loss of someone who had been such a vibrant and fearless presence in their lives. The authorities launched a thorough investigation into Laura's death, but the circumstances surrounding it were murky and complex. Rumors swirled, fueled by speculation and fear. Some whispered that Laura had stumbled upon information so damning that powerful forces had silenced her to protect their interests. Others speculated that her death was simply a tragic accident, the result of a series of unfortunate events. As the investigation unfolded, detectives combed through Laura's recent activities, scrutinizing her interactions and delving into her ongoing investigations. They interviewed witnesses, analyzed evidence, and retraced her steps in the days leading up to her death, searching for any clues that might shed light on what had happened. Meanwhile, Laura's colleagues and fellow journalists rallied together. Determined to continue her work and honor her memory, they pored over her notes and unfinished stories, vowing to carry on her mission of exposing corruption and holding those in power accountable. But as they delved deeper into Laura's investigations, they soon realized that they were treading on dangerous ground. The same forces that had silenced Laura now seemed intent on silencing anyone who dared to follow in her footsteps. Threats and intimidation tactics were deployed, leaving many feeling afraid and uncertain. Despite the risks, Laura's colleagues pressed on, driven by a shared sense of duty and a desire to seek justice for their fallen friend. With each new revelation, they moved one step closer to uncovering the truth behind Laura's death and the dark forces that had conspired to silence her. As the days turned into weeks and the investigation continued, one thing became clear: the legacy of Laura Wilkie would not be forgotten. Her courage, determination, and unwavering commitment to truth and justice would live on, inspiring others to carry on her fight and ensure that her death was not in vain. And as the sun set on another sweltering July evening in Ocala, the quest for answers continued, fueled by a determination to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. Laura received a tip about a secret meeting between Reed and a corrupt city council member. Determined to capture evidence, she set up surveillance near a local coffee shop called Brood Awakening. As she discreetly snapped photographs, she had no idea that someone was poisoning her. Eventually, this left her bedridden and finally dead on the scorching morning of July 12, 2007. Tragedy struck the quiet city of Ocala, Florida, precisely at 9 a.m. Jay Wilkie, Laura Wilkie's husband, made a horrifying discovery that would change his life forever. The day had started like any other in the Wilkie household, with the sun beating down mercilessly on the small suburban neighborhood as residents sought refuge in the coolness of their air-conditioned homes. But little did Jay know that this day would mark the beginning of a dark and perplexing chapter in his life. As Jay entered the bedroom, he was met with a sight that would haunt him for the rest of his days. There, lying motionless on the neatly made bed, was Laura, his beloved wife. Her once vibrant eyes were now closed forever, and her body lay still as if frozen in time. The room was filled with an eerie silence, broken only by Jay's gasp of disbelief. The authorities were immediately summoned to the scene, their sirens piercing the otherwise tranquil neighborhood as they meticulously combed through the room, searching for any clues that could shed light on this mysterious death. The air was thick with tension and uncertainty. In the days following Laura's untimely demise, the media frenzy surrounding the case reached a fever pitch. Headlines screamed with speculation, and armchair detectives dissected every detail, desperately trying to piece together the puzzle. News outlets like the Ocala Gazette and the Florida Times-Union dedicated countless column inches to the investigation as the city held its breath, waiting for answers. As the investigation continued, the city of Ocala held its breath, anxiously awaiting the day when the truth behind Laura's death would finally be unveiled. But for now, the answers remained elusive, shrouded in a web of secrecy and unanswered questions. In the heart of Ocala, a city known for its picturesque landscapes and vibrant community, a shocking crime took place that would leave the town in a state of shock and mourning. In the aftermath of Laura's death, the community of Ocala was gripped by a sense of disbelief and fear. The once vibrant city now felt like a shadow of its former self, as whispers of conspiracy and betrayal echoed through the streets. Jay Wilkie, Laura's husband, found himself thrust into the spotlight, his grief compounded by the overwhelming attention from the media and the relentless scrutiny of the public eye. Struggling to come to terms with his loss, Jay grappled with a flood of emotions, from anger and despair to confusion and disbelief. As the investigation into Laura's death intensified, tensions ran high, with rumors swirling about possible suspects and motives. Every new development seemed to only deepen the mystery surrounding her untimely demise, leaving residents on edge and desperate for answers. Meanwhile, Laura's colleagues and friends refused to let her memory fade away. They organized vigils and memorials, sharing stories of her courage and dedication in the face of adversity. Determined to seek justice for their fallen friend, they vowed to keep her spirit alive by continuing her work and shining a light on the corruption that had claimed her life. But as days turned into weeks and weeks into months, the initial shock began to fade, replaced by a lingering sense of unease and uncertainty. Despite the best efforts of law enforcement and the relentless pursuit of the truth, the case remained unsolved, leaving a gaping hole in the hearts of those who knew and loved Laura. In the quiet moments of reflection, as the sun set over the tranquil streets of Ocala, one question lingered in the minds of residents. Who killed Laura Wilkie and why? Until that question was answered, the city would remain haunted by the specter of injustice, forever searching for closure in a case that had shaken it to its core. In a twist of disbelief, Laura Wilkie, a respected journalist and fearless investigator, met a tragic end on the scorching morning of July 12, 2007. Detectives Olivia Gressel and Mark Herr, renowned for their meticulous approach to investigations, swiftly arrived at the scene. The Ocala Police Department was determined to solve this heinous crime and bring justice to Laura and her grieving loved ones. As they entered the house, an eerie calm hung in the air. There were no signs of forced entry, suggesting that the killer had either been known to Laura or possessed a level of cunning that allowed them to gain access undetected. The detectives meticulously combed through every inch of the crime scene, searching for any clue that could shed light on Laura's untimely demise. The house appeared immaculately clean, as if someone had meticulously tidied up after the crime. However, their attention was soon drawn to the cause of death: poisoning. The exact substance used remained a mystery, leaving the investigators puzzled and determined to uncover the truth. With a keen eye for detail, the detectives photographed every inch of the crime scene, capturing potential DNA samples and any other evidence that could potentially lead them to the killer. They knew that to solve this perplexing case, they would need to leave no stone unturned. As the investigation unfolded, the town of Ocala was gripped with a sense of unease. The search for the truth intensified, leaving the town anxiously awaiting the day when justice would finally be served. The initial focus of the investigation turned towards Jay Wilkie, a 49-year-old man who owned a flourishing gardening supply store in Ocala, Florida. Known for his friendly demeanor and charm, Jay was a familiar face in the community. However, beneath this amiable facade, there were whispers of a darker side. Detectives Olivia Gressel and Mark Herr delved into Jay's relationship with his wife Laura, searching for any clues that could shed light on a possible motive. They meticulously pieced together the puzzle of their marriage, uncovering a history of turbulence and hidden tensions. As they delved deeper into Jay's personal life, they discovered a series of text messages exchanged between him and Laura in the weeks leading up to her tragic demise. The messages were from Laura begging Jay to stay away from her, indicating cracks in the foundation of their marriage. Determined to uncover the truth, the detectives obtained a warrant to search Jay's phone records, hoping to find more evidence that could connect him to Laura's murder. Simultaneously, they scoured the city for any potential witnesses who may have seen or heard something on the day of the crime. They examined surveillance footage from nearby establishments, hoping to catch a glimpse of any suspicious individuals lurking in the vicinity of Laura's home. As the case gained media attention, tips flooded in from concerned citizens, each one meticulously followed up on by the diligent detectives. Despite the mounting pressure, Jay Wilkie vehemently maintained his innocence, hiring a high-profile defense attorney to speak on his behalf. Meanwhile, Clara Pointer, a 28-year-old co-worker and close friend of Laura Wilkie, emerged as a significant person of interest in the ongoing investigation. As the investigation into Laura Wilkie's murder deepened, Detective Gressel and Detective Herr found themselves facing a tangled web of clues and suspicions. Clara Pointer's emergence as a person of interest added another layer of complexity to the case. Clara, once considered a close friend and co-worker of Laura, now found herself under the scrutiny of law enforcement. Detectives delved into Clara's background, uncovering a series of interactions and encounters between her and Laura in the weeks leading up to the crime. Clara's demeanor shifted under the weight of suspicion as she faced intense questioning from investigators. Her alibis were scrutinized, her motives dissected, and her every move analyzed for any hint of deception. Meanwhile, Jay Wilkie's steadfast denial of involvement in his wife's murder only deepened the mystery. With the evidence against him mounting, Jay's once charming facade began to crack under the pressure of the investigation. As the summer heat bore down relentlessly on Ocala, tensions reached a boiling point. The community grappled with fear and uncertainty, unsure of who could be trusted and haunted by the specter of a killer still at large. Despite the challenges and setbacks, Detective Gressel and Detective Herr remained steadfast in their pursuit of justice. They pored over every piece of evidence, re-interviewed witnesses, and tirelessly followed up on leads, determined to unravel the truth behind Laura Wilkie's tragic death. But as days turned into weeks and weeks into months, the case seemed to hit a dead end. The trail grew cold, and the answers remained elusive, shrouded in a veil of mystery. Yet, amidst the frustration and uncertainty, one thing remained clear. The memory of Laura Wilkie would not be forgotten. Her fearless spirit and unwavering commitment to the truth continued to inspire those who had known her, driving them to seek justice and closure in her name. As the investigation stretched on, the resolve of Detective Gressel and Detective Herr remained unshakable. With each passing day, they grew closer to cracking the case wide open, determined to bring closure to a community left reeling by a crime that had shattered its sense of safety and trust. In the wake of Laura Wilkie's tragic death, Clara Pointer, a journalist like Laura who contributed to Laura's blog, Ocala After Dark, came under suspicion. Known for her ambition and relentless pursuit of success, Clara was rumored to harbor envy towards Laura's achievements and coveted her position as the head of Ocala After Dark. During police interrogations, Clara maintained a calm exterior, deflecting suspicions and denying any involvement in Laura's murder. Instead, she pointed fingers at Jay, Laura's husband, alleging that Laura had expressed fear of him and blamed him for her illness leading to her demise. However, evidence began to mount against Clara. Surveillance footage showed her purchasing a powerful sedative on the morning of Laura's death, the same substance found in Laura's system during the autopsy. Witnesses also reported hearing Clara make disparaging remarks about Laura's success, indicating possible jealousy. A major breakthrough occurred when detectives uncovered a series of emails exchanged between Clara and David Marlborough, a private investigator hired by Laura to uncover corruption. These emails revealed Clara's secret collaboration with David to sabotage Laura's investigations. David, known for his past involvement in high-profile cases, denied any involvement in Laura's murder, but faced scrutiny due to financial struggles and a history of personal grudges. As the investigation unfolded, Clara emerged as the true mastermind behind Laura's murder. Her jealousy and desire to take over Ocala After Dark drove her to manipulate David and orchestrate Laura's demise. With each piece of evidence, the web of suspects grew more intricate, leaving the Ocala community on edge as they awaited justice for Laura's untimely death. Clara, a 28-year-old co-worker and friend of Laura, harbored a deep-seated jealousy and desire for power. She had long coveted Laura's position as the head of Ocala After Dark, and rumors of her envy and resentment towards Laura's success had been circulating for months. However, the true extent of Clara's treachery was beyond anyone's imagination. The police made a breakthrough in the case on July 17, 2007, when they discovered a series of emails between Clara and David Marlborough, a private investigator hired by Laura. These emails revealed Clara's nefarious plans to seduce and manipulate David, who harbored an unhealthy sexual obsession with Laura. David, with a personal vendetta against Laura, inadvertently aided Clara in her sinister plot due to his twisted infatuation. Clara had been secretly poisoning Laura's coffee for months, gradually weakening her. Laura's haunting words, "Don't let my husband near me, he wants me dead," were a chilling reminder of Clara's manipulation and the tragic fate that awaited Laura. But Clara's deceit did not end there. She exploited both Laura's husband, J. Wilkie, and David, using her sexuality and their vulnerabilities to further her sinister agenda. As the investigation unfolded, the police pieced together Clara's manipulative tactics, exposing the extent of her exploitation. With mounting evidence against her, Clara was arrested at her apartment. Her calculated use of sexuality and manipulation showcased a level of cunning that was truly chilling. The trial that followed was a gripping spectacle, with the courtroom packed with eager spectators. District Attorney Unity Collins led the prosecution, presenting a compelling argument that left no room for doubt about Clara's guilt. Despite the defense attorney's efforts to cast doubt on the evidence and Clara's motives, the weight of evidence against her was overwhelming. Emotions ran high as Laura's family sought justice for their beloved daughter. After hours of deliberation, the jury delivered a unanimous verdict: guilty. Clara Pointer was found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to 25 years in prison without the possibility of parole. The verdict brought a mix of relief and anguish to Laura's family and friends, offering them a sense of closure as they began to heal and move forward. For J. Wilkie, Laura's husband, who had been falsely accused, the verdict brought a mix of relief and grief. As life settled into a new normal for all involved, they cherished the memories of Laura and the impact she had on their lives. Seeking solace, Jay focused on rebuilding his life, pouring his energy into his gardening supply store and reconnecting with friends and family. The support of the Ocala community during the trial became a source of comfort for him. Jay emerged as an advocate for justice reform, using his own experience to raise awareness about wrongful accusations. David Yarbrough, the private investigator unwittingly involved in Clara Pointer's plot, was consumed by guilt. He dedicated himself to making amends, reaching out to Laura's family with a sincere apology and offering assistance in any way he could. David embarked on a personal journey of redemption, vowing to use his investigative skills for good and help other victims of manipulation and deceit. As time passed, wounds began to heal, but the memory of Laura Wilkie remained deeply etched in the hearts of those who knew her. The trial had exposed the dark underbelly of jealousy and manipulation, but also showcased the resilience of a community seeking justice. The impact of Laura's life and untimely death would forever serve as a reminder to cherish the truth and stand against those who seek to deceive. And with that, we conclude this episode of True Crime Story Files. The haunting words of Laura Wilkie, "Don't let my husband near me, he wants me dead," will forever echo in our minds. This tragic tale serves as a reminder of the darkness that can reside within the human heart. Join us next time as we uncover another chilling true crime story, delving into the depths of human nature. To all you true crime story solvers out there, interested in more real-life murder mysteries, be sure to like and subscribe to our channel. Do you have any thoughts about this case or have a case of your own you'd like us to investigate? Leave us a comment. Until then, stay safe. On the evening of February 23, 2019, a young woman named Jessie Correa left a party with her friends. They had enjoyed themselves and departed in a car, but Jessie stayed behind to catch another ride home. Unfortunately, it seems she got into the wrong car by mistake, leading to a dispute with the driver. This argument caught the attention of a nearby man. Shortly after, Jessie left with this man, and that was the last time she was seen alive. 5 days later, police stopped a car displaying suspicious signs. What they discovered inside would haunt them forever. Jessie Correa had been eagerly anticipating her 23rd birthday celebration at a popular entertainment venue in Boston. The night, meant to be filled with joy and laughter, took a tragic turn when Jessie never made it back home. Her alarming disappearance quickly became a major news story, covered extensively by numerous American TV channels. Jessie Correa had a life story far from a fairy tale. A year before these events, she had suffered a violent attack from the father of her daughter Gabriela, named Miguel Castro. Despite her efforts to leave him, Castro's aggression escalated, resulting in a severe beating. This incident led Jessie to seek police intervention, which culminated in Castro's conviction and a 4-year prison sentence. Professionally, Jessie was a dedicated waitress at Del Frisco's, a renowned restaurant in Boston. Her passions included dancing and photography, and she cherished every moment spent with her family, friends, and especially her daughter. She loved outings to the park with Gabriela, creating memories now tinged with sadness. On the evening of February 23, 2019, Jessie, dressed in a new orange jumpsuit, left her 2-year-old daughter with family to celebrate her birthday. The chosen venue was a vibrant nightclub in Boston's Theatre District on Warren Street. According to a friend, the night was spent joyfully dancing and enjoying champagne. After the club closed, Jessie and two friends emerged into the night, but they parted ways, leaving Jessie alone. That was the last time she was seen. Attempts to contact her were futile as her phone went straight to voicemail. For 2 agonizing days, there was no news of Jessie. Her worried family had no idea of her whereabouts since that fateful Sunday morning. On February 26, her father, Joaquim Correa, along with a friend, approached the police to report Jessie's mysterious disappearance. The police launched a full-scale investigation, beginning with tracing her steps post-nightclub. Flyers were distributed across the city, imploring the public for any information. Despite interviewing her friends who were with her that night, the investigation hit a roadblock. None knew where she had gone after leaving the venue. Their farewell that night was their last interaction with Jessie. In their meticulous investigation into Jessie Correa's disappearance, the police scrutinized witness accounts and analyzed CCTV footage from both the nightclub and the surrounding streets. A critical piece of footage from Tront Street, captured at 2:14 a.m., revealed Jessie outside the nightclub engaging with several individuals. After leaving the club, the video showed a visibly inebriated Jessie mistakenly entering an Uber she hadn't ordered, leading to a heated argument with the driver, who subsequently forced her out of the vehicle. The situation escalated as Jessie continued to argue with the Uber driver. It was then that an unknown man approached her, seemingly offering assistance. The footage captured a disturbing interaction. The man holding onto Jessie's hands appeared to be restraining her, despite her attempts to leave. The CCTV then recorded the chilling moment Jessie was coerced into leaving the area with this stranger. The gravity of the situation became apparent. Jessie had unknowingly encountered a predator. Further video evidence showed a haunting scene. Jessie, in an attempt to lighten the mood, climbed onto the man's back. He then carried her to his vehicle and they drove off together, disappearing from the camera's view merely 14 minutes later. Faced with these harrowing images, the police were tasked with unraveling numerous unanswered questions. The identity of this mysterious man and his intentions were paramount. The pressing question remained: where had he taken Jessie? The investigation intensified as the police sought to piece together the events of that fateful night, hoping to uncover the truth behind Jessie's disappearance. A breakthrough in Jessie Correa's case came swiftly. As the police identified the man seen with Jessie Correa, they found him to be 32-year-old Louis Coleman. Coming from a well-regarded family and reportedly holding a master's degree in physics, Coleman had no prior run-ins with the law. Interestingly, police records showed no vehicle registered to Coleman. However, it was discovered that his mother, a resident of California, owned a red 2016 Buick, the same type of car seen in the CCTV footage. Coleman's residence was located in Providence, Rhode Island, approximately 50 miles from the nightclub in Boston where Jessie was last seen. When the police arrived at Coleman's home in Providence, they found it empty. Surveillance cameras in and around his apartment complex provided grim confirmation of the investigators and Jessie's family's worst fears. The journey from the nightclub to Coleman's apartment typically took an hour. However, the timeline of events indicated that Coleman must have made a stop along the way, as he only reached his apartment around 4:15 a.m. on Sunday, roughly 2 hours after he was seen leaving with Jessie. Intriguingly, the following day, Coleman sent an email to his colleagues, citing illness as the reason for his absence and stating his intention to return in a few days. "Hey all, just giving everyone a heads up that I'm still out sick. I'll be back in a few days," he wrote. This communication raised suspicions that Coleman was buying time to conceal evidence of the crime, a theory that gained traction as investigators pieced together his actions over the subsequent 2 days. The police investigation into Jessie Correa's disappearance unearthed a series of chilling CCTV footage, shedding light on the tragic events following her encounter with Louis Coleman. Special Agent Thomas Zukowski described a key piece of footage showing Coleman carrying a motionless woman with long hair and orange pants, believed to be Jessie, into his apartment building around 4:27 a.m. This raised immediate concern, as Jessie appeared either unconscious or worse. On February 26, the day Jessie's father reported her missing, Coleman was spotted at a Walmart purchasing items that later seemed incriminating: Tyvek suits, duct tape, candles, electrical tape, a mask, surgical gloves, safety goggles, a respirator, bleach, and more. His actions suggested a desperate attempt to cover up a heinous act. The next day, while Jesse's loved ones distributed missing person flyers, Coleman returned to Walmart, this time buying a large suitcase and a canister. Later that evening, CCTV footage captured him entering his apartment with the new suitcase and then, in the early hours of February 28th, wheeling it out to his car. The footage was harrowing, showing Coleman struggling to load the heavy suitcase into the trunk. U.S. Attorney for Massachusetts Andrew Lelling later confirmed that since the morning of February 24th, Jesse Correa had not left Coleman's apartment. The police, armed with a search warrant, found incriminating items in Coleman's apartment and a nearby dumpster, including stained jeans, hooded coveralls, and items purchased from Walmart. On February 28th, when the police stopped Coleman near Wilmington, Delaware, they made a grim discovery in the trunk of his car. Jesse's body, concealed in a sofa cushion cover and a black trash bag inside the suitcase. Forensic examination revealed she had suffered strangulation and blunt force trauma, and there was evidence linking Coleman to the crime through DNA analysis. The tragedy of Jesse's untimely death was compounded by the loss experienced by her 2-year-old daughter. Boston authorities, visiting the Correa family, pledged to seek justice for Jesse. Amidst this, some social media users questioned Jesse's decision to be out alone at night. However, Suffolk District Attorney Rachel Rollins emphasized that the focus should not be on victim blaming, but rather on addressing the underlying issues of violence against women. Rollins urged a shift in societal conversation, calling for men to take responsibility and actively combat violence against women in all spheres of life. Lewis Coleman faced grave charges of kidnapping, resulting in deaths, a crime carrying the potential for either the death penalty or life imprisonment. However, in November 2019, prosecutors decided against seeking the death penalty, setting the stage for a trial steeped in complex evidence and emotional testimony. During the trial, prosecutors laid out a compelling case, presenting a range of evidence, including a disturbing video of Coleman dragging Jesse Correa's body into his Providence apartment. The prosecution also highlighted Coleman's unsettling online searches post-abduction, which included queries about fitting a body into a suitcase and extracting a tooth. Coleman's defense team, led by attorney David Hoos, challenged the relevance of this evidence to the kidnapping charge, arguing that the focus should be on the specific elements of the kidnapping allegation rather than Coleman's actions following Correa's death. The trial revealed a nuanced narrative of the events leading up to Jesse's tragic demise, with prosecutors establishing that Coleman was present in the same nightclub. As Jessie and her friends were at the nightclub, Coleman interacted with another woman, not Jessie, even exchanging phone numbers and texts with her. However, the situation took a grim turn when, according to prosecutors, Coleman misled Jessie into believing he would drive her to her friend's apartment, ultimately leading to her death. In stark contrast, the defense portrayed Jessie as the aggressor, suggesting that an impromptu fight between her and Coleman led to the fatal altercation. They argued that this was not a premeditated crime, despite the prosecution's assertion that Coleman, significantly larger than Jessie, was unlikely to be overpowered by her. Adding complexity to the defense's narrative were toxicology reports showing the presence of alcohol and prohibited substances in Jessie's system. Despite these claims, the jury found Coleman guilty of kidnapping resulting in death in June 2022. In October 2022, the court sentenced 36-year-old Lewis Coleman to life imprisonment without parole and ordered him to pay approximately $660,000 in compensation to Jesse's family. First Assistant United States Attorney Joshua Levy, in a poignant statement, underscored the irreversible harm and suffering inflicted by Coleman on Jessie and her family. Levy emphasized Coleman's lack of remorse and his elaborate efforts to conceal his heinous crime. The sentence, while unable to alleviate the enduring pain of Jesse's family, marked a conclusion to a case that had deeply impacted the community. The unanswered question of Coleman's intentions with Jesse's body lingered, a haunting reminder of the tragedy that befell a young mother and the shadow it cast on those she left behind. On the morning of Saturday, March 9, 2019, a solemn gathering filled St. Peter's Parish in Dorchester, uniting in grief to bid farewell to Jesse Correa. The air was heavy with sorrow as family, friends, and members of the community assembled to honor her memory. Some attendees chose to wear all white as a symbol of mourning, while others donned buttons, shirts, and sweatshirts adorned with Jessie's image and the poignant slogan, "Justice for Jessie." During the ceremony, Jessie's cousin and best friend, Makar DeAndrea, shared heartfelt words expressing both the deep sadness and the firm belief that Jessie's untimely passing was not meaningless. "We may not understand why, but God knows. I trust with all my heart that her death was not in vain," DeAndrea conveyed with emotion. Boston Mayor Marty Walsh, in his eulogy, reflected on the tragedy and committed to striving for a safer world for women. Young women should be able to celebrate their birthdays without fear and return safely to their children and families, Walsh asserted, empathizing with the unimaginable pain Jessie's family endured. Jessie's father, Joachim Correa, addressed the congregation of over 200 people, expressing gratitude for the overwhelming support from the city and the tireless efforts of law enforcement across 3 states. Among the attendees was Jessie's mother, who had not seen her daughter in 20 years and had traveled from Portugal, embodying the far-reaching impact of the tragedy. The church was filled to capacity, with many people standing along the back wall, a testament to the love and respect held for Jessie. In his final tribute, Joachim Correa's words echoed with both sorrow and love. "Rest in paradise, my dear Jessie. Rest in peace." The community's response to Jessie Correa's tragic death was profound, highlighting the need for greater awareness and action against violence. In the days and weeks following her funeral, vigils and memorials were held throughout Boston, with people from all walks of life coming together to honor her memory and stand in solidarity with her family. The case became a rallying point for discussions on women's safety and the need for stronger protective measures. Advocates and local leaders called for increased resources for domestic violence prevention and victim support services. Jessie's story was seen as a stark reminder of the vulnerabilities faced by women, particularly when alone at night. Organizations dedicated to combating violence against women used the incident to amplify their message, advocating for systemic changes to prevent such tragedies in the future. In response to the community's outcry, city officials announced plans to implement additional safety measures in nightlife areas, including improved lighting and increased police presence. There were also calls for better training for ride-sharing drivers and stricter regulations to ensure passenger safety. The tragedy prompted a broader conversation about the responsibility of businesses and the community in safeguarding individuals, especially women, in public spaces. Jessie's family, while devastated by their loss, expressed a deep commitment to ensuring that her death would lead to positive change. They established a foundation in her name, aimed at supporting survivors of violence and promoting awareness around the issues Jessie faced. The foundation's efforts included educational programs, community outreach, and partnerships with local shelters and support groups. Jessie's mother, despite the long years of separation, became actively involved, finding a sense of purpose in helping others through her daughter's legacy. The legal proceedings continued to draw significant public attention. Lewis Coleman's appeal processes and subsequent hearings were closely followed by the media and the community. The case highlighted critical issues within the criminal justice system, including the handling of domestic violence cases and the treatment of defendants in high-profile trials. Throughout this period, Jessie's family and friends remained a visible presence, attending court sessions and participating in public events. They became advocates for change, sharing Jessie's story to raise awareness about the dangers women face and the importance of community vigilance. Their resilience and advocacy were met with widespread support, as many recognized the courage it took to turn their grief into a force for good. In the years following the trial, Jessie's story continued to resonate. It served as a cautionary tale and a call to action, inspiring initiatives aimed at protecting vulnerable individuals. Educational institutions incorporated discussions about personal safety and consent into their programs, and public campaigns were launched to encourage bystander intervention and support for those in distress. Jessie Correa's legacy, though born from tragedy, became a symbol of hope and change. Her story underscored the importance of community solidarity, the need for systemic reform, and the power of advocacy in preventing violence and supporting survivors. As the community healed, they carried forward the lessons learned from Jessie's life and death, determined to create a safer and more compassionate society. The impact of Jessie Correia's tragic death extended beyond her immediate community, sparking a nationwide dialogue on issues of safety, gender violence, and justice. As media coverage of the case spread, so did public awareness and concern. National organizations focused on women's rights and safety rallied to support Jessie's family and used her story as a platform to advocate for broader systemic changes. In response to the outpouring of support and calls for action, lawmakers began to take notice. Proposals for new legislation aimed at improving safety for women in public spaces gained traction. This included measures to enhance security protocols in ride-sharing services, such as mandatory background checks for drivers, panic buttons for passengers, and more stringent verification processes. The aim was to create safer environments for women and ensure that incidents like Jessie's could be prevented in the future. The foundation established in Jessie's memory, named the Jessie Correia Foundation for Women's Safety, became a focal point for these efforts. The foundation's mission was to support survivors of violence, advocate for stronger protective laws, and promote educational programs on safety and empowerment. Through fundraising events, partnerships with local businesses, and public awareness campaigns, the foundation worked tirelessly to keep Jessie's memory alive and prevent similar tragedies. Jessie's story also highlighted the critical role of mental health support in the aftermath of trauma. The foundation collaborated with mental health professionals to offer counseling services to victims of violence and their families, recognizing the profound emotional and psychological impact such experiences can have. They provided resources and workshops on coping strategies, resilience building, and community healing, helping individuals and families navigate their grief and recovery. The annual Justice for Jessie March became a significant event, drawing participants from across the state and beyond. It served as a powerful reminder of the ongoing fight against gender-based violence and the importance of community solidarity. Each year, the march brought together survivors, advocates, law enforcement, and policymakers, fostering a space for dialogue, education, and action. The march not only honored Jessie's memory, but also advocated for continued vigilance and proactive measures to protect women. Educational institutions played a crucial role in perpetuating Jessie's legacy. Schools and universities incorporated discussions about consent, healthy relationships, and bystander intervention into their curricula. Programs aimed at empowering young women and educating young men about respect and responsibility became more widespread. These efforts were seen as essential steps in changing societal attitudes and preventing violence before it occurs. Jessie's family, despite their profound loss, became prominent advocates for change. They shared their story widely, speaking at events, participating in interviews, and working closely with the foundation. Their courage and dedication inspired many, highlighting the power of personal stories in driving social change. They emphasized that Jessie's death, while a devastating loss, should not be in vain, and that her story could be a catalyst for a safer and more just society. The case also brought to light the importance of law enforcement training in handling cases of gender violence and the need for a compassionate, victim-centered approach. Police departments across the region reviewed their policies and procedures, implementing training programs to better equip officers in dealing with such sensitive situations. This included training on trauma-informed practices, cultural competence, and the importance of maintaining a supportive and non-judgmental stance towards victims. As the years passed, Jessie's legacy continued to influence and inspire. Her story became a touchstone for discussions about safety, justice, and the need for societal change. The foundation's work expanded, reaching more communities and providing crucial support to those affected by violence. Jessie Correia, through her memory and the actions of those she left behind, became a symbol of resilience, hope, and the enduring fight for a world where women can live free from fear and violence. My dear child, the community's presence and solidarity served as a powerful reminder of Gus's life and the collective mourning of a life taken too soon. Freya Holm stepped out of the cafe where she worked weekends, and from that moment, her life took a dark turn. Disturbing clues began to surface, hinting at something truly awful. This case quickly became Sweden's top news story, mobilizing over 1,000 people for the largest search operation in the country's history. As investigators pieced together the puzzle, they uncovered a grim truth that left everyone stunned. How could such a tragedy have happened? Let's rewind to Freya's background. Freya Holm was born on February 7, 1999, in the serene Swedish town of Hu. It was a place of quietude and peace, where she lived with her parents and older sister. Freya stood out for her kindness, positivity, and determination. Even before finishing school, she had her sights set on Australia and a career in architecture. Freya's adventurous spirit led her to explore other countries alongside her parents. At 16, Freya landed her first serious job at a cafe, located a 40-minute drive from her home. Initially, her parents drove her there, but soon her father gifted her a scooter. With a license for this mode of transport, Freya relished the independence it offered. However, during those initial weeks, her father accompanied her in his car. Freya had minimal experience driving on the roads. Her work at the cafe was limited to weekends, and her father dutifully accompanied her every morning and evening. However, everything changed on June 7th, when he finally allowed her to drive to work alone. Around lunchtime, Freya's parents decided to visit her at the bustling cafe. Amid the crowd, Freya was engrossed in her duties, taking a brief break for lunch and sharing a snack with her parents. At 6:23 p.m., Freya sent her father a text, informing him that she was leaving work. But just 3 minutes later, he received an unexpected call from her. When he answered, no one spoke on the other end. Faint voices murmured in the background, leading him to believe that Freya had accidentally dialed his number while conversing with her colleagues. He even heard the distinct sound of a car door slamming shut. Calling out her name repeatedly, he received no response before finally ending the call. Growing increasingly worried, an hour passed without any sign of Freya. She should have arrived home by now. Concerned for her safety, her father considered the possibility of an accident. It was her first time riding the scooter alone, and he feared the worst. Despite calling her multiple times, Freya's phone remained off. Desperate, her father hit the road, hoping to intercept her along the way. Knowing she would take the shortest route, he drove slowly, scanning the road for any trace of his daughter. But Freya was nowhere to be found. Eventually, he arrived back at the cafe, still without any sign of her. The man's heart raced as he noticed Freya's scooter parked in front of the building. Panic surged through him. He had been unable to find his daughter throughout the entire journey. But there it was, the scooter, a beacon of hope. Perhaps she was merely delayed at work. However, as he stepped into the cafe, his relief turned to dread. The place was empty, devoid of any sign of Freya. And then he saw it. Freya's scooter keys, left in the ignition, a helmet hanging from its handle. His mind raced. Why would she abandon her scooter like this? She would never leave the keys in the ignition, not like this. Desperation drove him to call Freya's mother. Maybe she knew something. But the cafe owner, when contacted, claimed ignorance. She had spoken to her employees around 6 p.m., and they were closing up. No one had seen Freya. The cafe owner sprang into action. She hopped into her car, calling 4 friends who lived nearby. Together, they scoured the area, searching every nook and cranny. Maybe Freya had taken a bus instead of the scooter. Her mother and older sister checked the bus schedule, but Freya wasn't on any bus. As darkness settled, panic intensified. The police were called. Extensive searches began. Freya's scooter, left in the parking lot with the keys, raised chilling possibilities. Abduction? Such cases were rare in Sweden, but hope was dwindling. They needed answers, and they needed them fast. In the remote provincial area where Freja's town was nestled, the police sprang into action. Several groups, accompanied by search dogs, fanned out across the terrain. Simultaneously, officers knocked on doors of every house near the cafe, hoping for any leads. Word spread like wildfire. Freya's classmates and friends took to social media, sharing information about her disappearance, desperate to attract attention and perhaps uncover witnesses. The night wore on, but the search yielded no results. Then, on Monday morning, the police department officially announced Freya's disappearance, urging anyone with useful information to step forward. Around the same time, a man working at a barn adjacent to the cafe made a chilling discovery: a motorcycle glove lying on the floor. Detectives had previously inspected the barn on the evening of Freya's disappearance, but the glove had escaped their notice. When shown to Freya's parents, they confirmed it belonged to their daughter, further fueling the abduction theory. Additional resources were deployed, and news of Freya's vanishing spread nationwide. Hundreds of volunteers joined the search. On Tuesday, more alarming clues emerged. Volunteers scoured the area along a dirt road, a few hundred yards from the cafe. There, they found a phone case, a receipt, a ticket, and a broken smartphone screen, all unmistakably Freya's. The investigation honed in on that very spot. More fragments of the shattered phone, Freya's ID, and additional receipts were scattered along the same dirt road. The abduction of Freya sent shockwaves through the community. The police mobilized all available resources, and as each day passed, more people joined the search. Freya's case dominated headlines in Sweden, capturing the nation's attention. Hundreds of volunteers from across the country rallied to participate in the largest search operation in modern Swedish history. Among those aiding the search was a local volunteer organization specializing in finding missing persons. Their collective efforts were relentless, fueled by hope and determination. The police hotline buzzed with tips and leads, each call a potential breakthrough. One jogger's encounter stood out. She recounted an unsettling incident from the day before Freya vanished. A man, speaking English, had stopped her on the road, seeking directions to an unfamiliar city. When he insisted she get into his car to guide him using his navigator, her instincts kicked in. She declined, continuing her run. She later realized she had seen this man among the workers repairing the barn across from the cafe. Freya's colleagues also had an observation. On the day of her disappearance, they noticed two men standing across the road from the cafe, their gaze fixed on the establishment. At the time, it seemed insignificant, but in hindsight, it became a crucial detail. Then, on Wednesday morning, Freya's father and friends ventured to the dirt road where her belongings had been found. As they walked farther, they made alarming discoveries: Freya's driver's license and her house keys. The pieces of the puzzle were falling into place, but the mystery deepened. Where was Freya? What had happened to her? The search intensified, fueled by desperation and the unwavering hope of finding her alive. The unfolding events painted a chilling picture. Freya, her belongings strewn along the road, taken away from the cafe. The abductor discarded her things, keys, helmet, and scooter, like breadcrumbs leading to an ominous destination. The police and volunteers focused their efforts on this path. desperate for any sign of her. But that evening, a twist occurred. A friend of Freya's father, passing by the cafe, noticed the police tape removed from the barn where Freya's glove had been found. Curiosity piqued. He stepped inside, flashlight in hand. The dim light revealed something unexpected. A pair of earrings glinting on the floor. Identical earrings lay nearby. He reported this to the police, who showed them to Freya's parents. Their confirmation sealed the connection. The jewelry belonged to their missing daughter. The barn was sealed once more, but this time, thoroughness prevailed. Forensic experts and search dogs combed every inch. And then, behind a wall, an unusual clue emerged: human feces. At first glance, it seemed unrelated, but the experts proposed an intriguing theory. When criminals commit heinous acts, adrenaline floods their bodies. Sometimes, this intense surge leads to an uncontrollable need to relieve themselves. Even killers in their darkest moments may involuntarily betray their presence. The search intensified, fueled by desperation and determination. Freya's fate hung in the balance, and the clock ticked relentlessly. The truth lay hidden within these cryptic clues, waiting to be unraveled. As the investigation unfolded, the pieces of the puzzle began to fit together. Freya's glove and earrings discovered in the barn hinted at a grim possibility. The perpetrator might have dragged her into that very building. Detectives refused to rule out the notion that adrenaline-fueled urgency could lead to an involuntary act, relieving themselves. The feces found were sent for DNA analysis, hoping to unravel the truth. On Friday, the search area expanded. Volunteers reached a farm about 2 miles from the cafe, a sprawling complex with several large buildings. The search team meticulously inspected each one. But then, 2 men arrived, speaking only English. One claimed the police had already been there, but the team leader remained skeptical. He pressed on, determined to uncover any secrets hidden within the farm's walls. As the men watched, the search continued. And then, behind the cowshed, a pile of branches concealed a chilling cache: a motorcycle helmet, jacket, and headphones, all belonging to Freya. The police descended on the scene, confirming the connection. Forensic experts combed every inch, and their attention turned to an unusual find: human feces. It seemed unrelated, but they knew better. When criminals commit heinous acts, adrenaline surges, sometimes leading to uncontrollable urges. Detectives also recalled a jogger's encounter with a suspicious English-speaking man. And they had an inkling. From the outset, they had visited every house near the cafe. In one, 2 Lithuanian brothers and the wife of one lived, none speaking Swedish, all communicating in English. The pieces were falling into place, but Freya's fate remained shrouded in darkness. The search persisted, fueled by determination and the desperate hope of finding her alive. Freya Holm's disappearance and the subsequent investigation gripped Sweden, leaving an indelible mark on the nation's collective memory. On June 7, 2015, Freya Helena Holm, a 16-year-old girl from Skövde, was working at a cafe in Blomberg, near Kalby in Västergötland, Sweden. She sent a text message to her father at 6:23 p.m., saying she was on her way home on her moped. However, when Freya didn't arrive, her father went to her workplace, where he found her moped with the keys still in the ignition. Concerned, he and the cafe owner searched the cafe in the nearby area, but Freya was nowhere to be found. At 9:47 p.m., they reported her missing to the police. The police initiated searches in the vicinity, including a barn with several rooms, but initially found no trace of Freya. On June 9th, the search team discovered Freya's cell phone case, receipts, tickets, and other personal items that confirmed they belonged to her. The search area was expanded, and Missing People, a volunteer organization, joined the efforts. Earrings and her license card for the moped were found, and on June 12th, Missing People searched the Martorp estate, a few kilometers from the cafe. There, they found Freya's jacket and helmet. Later that same night, Freya's body was discovered in a nearby workshed. The forensic investigation revealed that Freya had been murdered by hanging or strangulation. DNA evidence linked Lithuanian citizen Nerijus Bilevičius to the crime scene. His DNA was found on pieces of rope and 10 pieces of Freya's clothing, both inside and outside the locker where her body was hidden. Bilevičius had no alibi for the day of the murder, and the motive appeared to be of a sexual nature. Despite the absence of signs of sexual assault, Freya's partially unclothed body was found with a rope around her neck and tape over her head. The news of Freya's abduction and subsequent discovery of her body dominated headlines in Sweden. The tragic case left a lasting impact on the country, highlighting the importance of justice and safety for young individuals. Freya's lifeless body lay in the car as it sped toward the farm. Along the way, the perpetrator flung her belongings out of the window, scattering them across the roadside. At the farm, hidden within the trailer locker, Freya's remains were concealed beneath a pile of old clothes. The abduction had been swift, less than an hour from the moment Freya was taken. Despite compelling evidence, the perpetrator stubbornly maintained his innocence. His wife and younger brother, lacking any incriminating evidence, were eventually released. They wasted no time, swiftly departing Sweden to return to their homeland in Lithuania. As the trial loomed, the intensity grew. The accused, Nair, claimed he had toiled in that very barn for an extended period, suggesting his DNA might naturally be present there due to his work. Furthermore, he presented an alibi supported by both his wife and brother. However, doubts lingered about the credibility of these sources in court. On the other hand, the victim's clothing bore traces of Nas's DNA. This could only be explained by direct contact with Freya on the day of the murder. The police discovered a witness who had seen Nair's car near the cafe shortly before and after Freya's abduction. The car had repeatedly traversed the road between the cafe and the farm during the same time frame when Nair was supposedly at home, asleep, according to his brother and wife. Months passed after Freya's body was found, yet experts continued their meticulous examination of all available evidence. Cutting-edge equipment revealed Nas's DNA on nearly every article of Freya's clothing, including the inside of her underwear. As the entire country followed the case, investigators persisted in their search for additional clues that could strengthen the legal case against Nair. They even traveled to Lithuania to re-interview his wife and brother, but the woman remained steadfast in her insistence that Nair was innocent and had not left their home. During the investigation, the spotlight shifted to Nas's younger brother. Detectives pressed him for information, revealing the mounting evidence against his sibling. The brother, cornered, finally divulged the truth. he asserted that Nas had not been at home that fateful evening. Instead, Nas returned around 7:30 p.m., covered in dirt. In a panic, he hastily tossed his soiled clothes into the washing machine. As the police questioned all the residents, Nas whispered to his brother, urging him to vouch for his presence at home during that critical time. Nas later explained that he feared being wrongfully framed due to his immigrant status and lack of an alibi during the abduction window. Initially, the younger brother staunchly believed in Nas's innocence. However, faced with the weight of the evidence, he realized otherwise. Freya's funeral occurred just a month after her tragic murder. The church, with a capacity for 130 people, overflowed with mourners. To accommodate the crowd, organizers set up benches and large screens outside, allowing everyone to participate in the ceremony. The trial commenced 4 months later, once again gripping the entire nation. The pressure on everyone involved was immense. No room for error existed. Nas's lawyer clung to the argument that his client's DNA might have innocently ended up on the victim's clothing due to his work in the barn. However, the prosecution dismantled this theory, especially concerning Freya's underwear. The only plausible explanation for Nas's DNA being there was direct contact with the victim. The lawyer struggled to provide any other substantial evidence supporting Nas's innocence. Desperate, he even floated the theory that the real murderer might be Nas's younger brother. During the trial, Nas's younger brother unexpectedly provided crucial information. He confessed to manipulating multiple samples of Nas's DNA and placing them on the victim's body and at the crime scene. The lawyer struggled to explain how such DNA manipulations were possible. Despite the defense's efforts, the trial lasted a month, and Nas was ultimately found guilty of murder. His sentence: life imprisonment in a high-security prison. In Sweden, even prison facilities lean toward comfort, resembling decent 3-star hotels. Nas's lawyer attempted an appeal, but it was swiftly rejected in early 2017. Nas himself applied for deportation, seeking transfer to a Lithuanian prison. The reasons behind this decision remained undisclosed. Lithuanian prisons, however, are notably harsher than their Swedish counterparts. Still, the court approved Nas's request, even though providing comfortable detention conditions cost Swedish taxpayers significantly. In the same year, Nas's motives became apparent. He appealed to a Lithuanian court, successfully reducing his life sentence to 15 years. Yet, this fleeting joy was short-lived. The court later overturned its decision, condemning Nas to spend his entire life in prison, albeit without the comfort of his previous Swedish cell. In August 2022, Nas faced another grim reality after being transferred to a Lithuanian prison. During a routine inmate relocation, he was viciously attacked with a shank, sustaining severe injuries that proved fatal on the way to the hospital. As for Nas's wife, her involvement remains an open question. While there is practically no chance of her direct participation in the abduction or murder, experts would have detected her DNA on Freya's clothing or belongings if she were implicated.